Hi everyone, Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to take a moment before today's episode to touch on a few things. So my book, The Caregiver Chronicles, 22 Family Caregivers Get Real About the Ties That Bind, has been climbing the charts. And the reviews, the 5-star reviews, continue to roll in on Amazon. And it's just, I don't know, makes my heart so happy. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check it out yet, please do and go read those reviews and order yourself a copy. You can get it in Kindle or paperback. And also, it's now available on Goodreads as well as Barnes & Noble, so you can check it out there. And bookstores, smaller bookstores are starting to carry it. All of the authors live scattered about the country, so everybody's doing their part to try to get this into libraries and bookstores. So ask for it in your own indie bookstore or your Barnes & Noble or wherever it is that you shop for books. So thank you so much for your support. If you have read it and written a review, thank you. Now for today's episode. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and always smiling. I love having these amazing guests join me. Today, I have Dr. J. Dunn, and she is the author of the book Holistic. I swear, I was going to say the word, and then I'm just like, Kinesiology and Perfect Health in Paradise, CEO of My Happy Genes, creator and innovator of holistic kinesiology and holistic methylation, teacher and lecturer. So yay! Welcome, Dr. J.
Thank you, Teri. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Well, I told you before we hit record, I'm super excited to learn from you. Everyone who's been a fan of the show and listening in for a while knows my journey over these last 2 years with the mycotoxin poisoning, and I had never considered the genetic makeup of my body. And so so can you talk to us about I guess the impact that genes have on not only just our physical health, but really our mental health too.
Oh, yeah. And this is, I think you and I have some similar journeys. I was reading your bio, but let me back up to the beginning and then I'll answer that question because
Sure.
I'll put it in order. But I'm a chiropractic physician and I've been practicing for 35 years now. 35. Let me do them. Yeah, 35. And I did everything, I did all the modalities, the structural work, the nutritional work, the emotional work. I do some EFT. I noticed you do some tapping as well.
Yes.
Had a very successful practice in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But there were some things that were bothering me. I felt like we were missing a piece of the puzzle because for several reasons. One is my own depression. I suffered with depression the majority of my life, about 50 some years. And I always thought it was because of my childhood. I had a pretty rough childhood too, a lot of abuse and neglect. And, that was the story in my mind. And my patients, there were certain patients that didn't respond to anything I did. And as you said, your exposure to mycotoxin, you were affected much more than your family was. That kind of thing made me go, I think we're missing a piece of the puzzle here. Why do some people react and others don't? And another piece of the puzzle was that my father died at age 55 of lung cancer. Not a big mystery. He did everything he could to get it. But the interesting thing was his best friend married my mother after my dad died, and he was doing the same things, smoking, drinking, all the bad things in your life to get cancer. And he lived another 30 some years. And so you go, there has to be genetics, right? So I kept hearing this word methylation. And so I kind of did a deep dive into what is methylation? I've never heard of that. And so I kind of took it apart and realized there was a genetic piece there, that understanding how our genes influence our biochemistry, our brain chemistry, how we detox, how our immune system works. That was the piece of the puzzle I think that was missing. And so I got my genes tested. I went to 23andMe and put my genetic, the raw file into a program that pulls out certain genes. And there were about 30 of them. And one of the genes that stuck out, you get one gene from mom and one gene from dad, one set of genes from mom, one set of genes from dad. But you can have variations in those genes that make you unique. And what we call those SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms. It's just a slight change in the DNA code that then affects your physiology. And so one of the genes, I had what's called a homozygous SNP. In other words, both parents gave me the wrong code for this enzyme that absorbs vitamin D. It's called the vitamin D receptor. And in other words, I can't absorb vitamin D genetically. I'm about 70% reduced in my ability to absorb vitamin D. So you go, well, what does that mean? And so I dove into that. And one of the first studies I found said that, if you have a high incidence of cancer if you smoke, if you have that gene also. And I went, aha, there's my dad. But also it was associated with your ability to make serotonin and dopamine. It requires vitamin D. The pathways in our brain to make those neurotransmitters, the happy hormones, requires vitamin D, but it's also how we fight infections. And I had chronic fatigue syndrome for also another 40, 45 years or so. Those are things I struggled with in my practice. And with all the tools in my bag, I couldn't get on top of those things. No matter what I did, I had all these tools. It's like nothing is really working for me, helping other patients. But then I started to look at, well, how do we make up for that? How do we change the expression of that gene? And I figured it out. I figured out the cofactors that go along with that vitamin D receptor, a way to open it up, so that it accepts vitamin D. And the minute I did that, the minute I took the cofactors, the exact right cofactors for my genes, boom, my brain turned on. And I went, I think this is happy. I've heard about it. And I had never really felt it. My brain had never been able to make serotonin and dopamine. And so I think you'll get this, Teri, that my story became less important. It was like, yeah, we all have stuff that happens. But my brain is now in a state of like, okay, that happened. That's not who I am. I want to move forward. And my set point is up here now. It used to be down here where I'd struggle every day. I got to think positive. I got to listen to some good podcasts. I got to listen, I got to always kind of struggling to get up to here. And now I live here. And so, I have ups and downs, but my set point is now up here and I live in a much happier place. And to me, it was like, wow, if this works for me, it solved my chronic fatigue syndrome within a couple of weeks and my brain chemistry completely changed. I was like, can it work for other people? And so that's what I've been doing now for the last almost 10 years, has been looking at this. So I went back, my patients that weren't responding, I put them on specific nutrients for their genes and specific diet for their genes. And bam, the changes were happening like crazy. Things that we couldn't really get to before now suddenly were reversing. And so that got my attention.
Wow. One, you teared me up. Like when you talked about being able to finally be like, oh, this is what happy is. Like, this is what everybody's been talking about. Wow. And again, I told you beforehand, the genetic part of it became an aha moment for me, but I never did the genetic testing. So to me, I'm so curious. And I only say that because I've done incredible healing work. All my labs are back in the normal range. I mean, like the mycotoxin, we were able to use binders and I'm not kidding when I say I probably tried 75 different supplements. It was like, oh, try this, try this, try this, try this. And certain things were working. But I still have this lingering rash, this lingering issue of the psoriasis. And whether I try the diets, the food eliminations, the Epsom salt baths, the salt water, the sun, I just keep pulling in all these things. And now my brain's just going, oh my goodness, if there's like a certain thing that's missing. And so for me, if someone came to you and said, hey, this is what's going on with me, do you then say, oh, yes, go ahead and do the genetic testing? Or is it something that you help people do, like get that information?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And to answer the first part of that question, the individual nutrients that you take are specific for you. So you trying all different things. And, if you don't get the right recipe for your genes, you're going to be trying all different things. And as did I for my depression and chronic fatigue syndrome for so many years. And when I hit the right nutrients for my genes, bam, everything started to work. And so we don't really treat symptoms. We treat the deeper cause. And, I'm a functional medicine practitioner. For years, I was like, oh, we got to treat leaky gut. We got to treat the mold toxicity. We got to get you detoxing. We got to, it was like, that was what I call whack-a-mole medicine still, even though we weren't giving prescription meds, we were still treating symptoms instead of deeper down into the genetics. And when I started to do things at that level, everything started to normalize in the body. I mean, people's, their skin is going to change, or their energy levels will change, because we're working on mitochondria and energy production centers of the cells. Breaking down, it gets you to break down histamines so that you don't have this overload of histamine. We don't have to give you antihistamines. Your body will do it. And the question is, why is it not doing it? That's a better question. Why isn't it breaking? Why is one person reacting so severely to allergic, to pollen, and another person does not at all? Two people walking along and one's just miserable. Like, what is that? Why isn't your body breaking down histamine as efficiently as this person? And so that's where we get into the cellular level of addressing things, and the body just starts to fix these so-called symptoms and get you into a state of much more robust health, where the body is functioning like it's supposed to. The immune system is working right. You're detoxing correctly. You don't have to be on a detox program. The body does that by itself if you give the exact right nutrients to fire up your genes in the right way. And so that was the cool thing. That was the big aha. It's a paradigm shift. And as I was saying about the story, my story of my childhood, I thought that was the truth. The truth was my brain wasn't making neurotransmitters correctly. And when you live at that level, your resilience is like, okay, yeah, well, that was crappy. My dad wasn't a nice person, but that was long ago. I don't want to live in that state anymore. And the EMDR works, the EFT works. It's like, bam, it takes you to that whole nother level. So if that makes some sense, it's a real paradigm shift to think the other way around. Like the depression is a symptom of your brain not making correct neurotransmitters. And why is it not doing that?
Wow, you're my new hero. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, sometimes you just come across things and it just makes your mind go, holy moly. Like, again, I must have said, I'm not kidding, in the last week I've been talking to a newfound friend, and as a matter of fact, I've been taking this new activator, and so it's just another step in the process, and it's really helped my skin a tremendous amount. And it's more to do with oxidative stress is what we're kind of focusing on. And so, but I must have said in the last week, the missing puzzle piece, the missing puzzle piece, the missing, like I've been searching for the missing puzzle piece. Like, I've been putting the puzzle together, and it's like so many things have gotten better and so much has cleared up, but there's still that missing puzzle piece, and just been on the search for it. And so you keep saying the words, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, because yeah, it's true. Oh, I love it. Because what hope that gives to folks to say, oh, hey, let's take a look at, what's going on genetically with you, and see how this all plays out. Yeah. Wow. Very fascinating. Cool.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, again, you have me so like.
So when we look at the whole brain chemistry kind of the pathways, I'm looking at it right now. Actually, I'm looking at the biochemical pathways here. And I didn't like biochemistry. It was like not interesting to me until I learned about the genetic piece and how this all fits into the biochemical pathways. And so, how we make serotonin, how we make dopamine, how we break them down. So in some cases, people can't break down adrenaline, and that keeps them in a state of panic and anxiety because they have a genetic variant in the enzyme that breaks down adrenaline. And so again, they stay in this like hyper vigilant state. This is the COMT enzyme that breaks down adrenaline and noradrenaline and dopamine. these people, and I think you're one of them too, just from the short time that, that we've been talking, the comped people are super smart, very fun, very interesting, very creative, but they don't shut it down. They can't, like, their mind just goes all the time, and they're always thinking about stuff. It's like they can't get into that, or like a really relaxed state very easily. They really have to work at meditation. They just like, oh man, are we done yet?
Yeah.
Are we done yet? I got laundry to do, and meditate.
Yes.
So when we work with that enzyme, it requires specific nutrients, specific minerals that help that enzyme work better to break down adrenaline. And then they go, this is calm. I've heard about calm, sort of the same kind of thing, not just heard about happy, but I've heard about calm. And then there's another gene called the MAO. It's the warrior gene. And it causes irritability and ADD and a bit of anxiety too, but just this grouchiness factor. And when we start working on that enzyme and we start getting it to break down, people just get really chill. They're like, I've had especially wives come back of, husbands that are kind of the grouchy guy. They'll come back in and go, oh my gosh, what a change. He's just so chill and relaxed. And the grouchy factor is gone. And so it's really fun. It's really fun to see this, tweaking the biochemistry according to your genetics and seeing the change in personality. It's just fascinating. And I don't think it's an area that we haven't heard much about. We've been working on the side of let's calm down, let's meditate, let's, think positive, let's listen to good stuff. Let's do EMDR. And not that stuff isn't great. It's amazing. But when you get your brain chemistry balance, all of that stuff has an even more powerful impact on your brain chemistry and your personality. So it's been fascinating and really fun to see the changes, but also to tell people, like you, I think I hit a nerve there. Like, hey, I'll bet this is you. You're, like you're always thinking, I got a good idea. And there are genes for being an entrepreneur. The DRD3 gene, it's a dopamine receptor, and when you have a genetic variant there, it tends to make you one of those kind of people that's always thinking of a better way to do things. And for these people, they'll be like, I can't follow a recipe like it's written. I always have to go, I wonder if a higher heat, or if I added a little more cinnamon in there, or if I, and so they're usually entrepreneurs. They usually own their own business. They don't want to work for other people. So when I read these genetic reports for people, they go, how did you know that? Or I'll say, I'll bet in school you were really smart, but you couldn't focus. Like your grades weren't great because you were just way past everybody. You're probably really high IQ, but the attention is difficult for you. And they're like, yeah, how'd you know that? Like, it's in your genes. It's not your it's not your fault. And that was the other thing, Teri. It was like this, when I discovered that it was my genes that was making me depressed for most of my life, it gave me a lot of compassion and for myself, because I'd been beating myself up. And I think we do that. I think we go, why can't I just be happy? Why can't I just be calm? Why can't I just be nice? And it wasn't my fault. And so I'm writing a book called The Genetic Compassion. And it's about that concept of like, wow, a lot of this is in my genes. And it's not to dismiss childhood traumas or childhood experiences, because that definitely kind of contributes to how the genes express, but it isn't the whole story. It colors your how you look at an event. If you're in that stress, if you're that stress person, then you're highly associated with PTSD when you are exposed to trauma, versus somebody who doesn't get PTSD from the same trauma. And you probably have seen this too with your degree in psychology and your interest in PTSD. Some people, same experience. One person is highly traumatized and the other person is like, meh, that happened, So it's how your genes have set you up to be in that space and to be traumatized by an experience. And if we can get that baseline back and get the person in to do some EMDR and EFT work, bam, that trauma can go. And so it's been really fun to do that baseline with people and get them in that state, and then everything really starts to fall into place.
Yeah. Wow. That's exactly why I went back to school and to obtain my degree in psychology. Was I had been in two horrific bank robberies, but the second one One, a gun was held to my head. My coworker was stabbed with a hunting knife. And then the second one,
Oh,
same assailants came back. They didn't
wow.
catch them. And only this time, the assailant that had held the gun to my head pulled the trigger and murdered my coworker. And I came face to
Oh,
face with a second armed gunman out in open space. I was caught between two gunmen. And it was so,
mm,
and my mom had been through two bank robberies, very similar, gun held to her head, like very similar.
oh
And
my
but I experienced terrific panic attacks where my mom was like, whatever, life goes
God.
on. And so
Yeah.
I said, what is this? And so I
Yeah.
literally like went back to school for a psychology degree because I wanted to understand exactly what you just said. We're like, why am I having these horrible panic attacks and struggling? I can't get over this. And
Yeah.
why is she just like, let's have another vodka and life goes on and let's have a party. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that was it. And it's just again, oh, so fascinating. And I want to ask you a question only because again, it's like such a personal curiosity.
Sure.
So the beach, I live on Hilton Head Island, which is paradise and gorgeous. And the beach was always my happy place to go and just chill and, oh my gosh, listening to the waves. It was my very like chill place. Well, then over the past couple of years, and this was prior to the exposure to the mold, I found myself incredibly uh, having incredible heightened anxiety, more and more and more, almost to the verge of panic attacks. Um, Sitting out on the beach, and it
Yeah.
was the wide open spaces, and I kept attributing it back to, oh, I've done all this healing work. It's just we're getting, the layers are being peeled away. And it was, that second bank robbery. Like I kept telling myself, oh, I feel exposed. I'm out in the wide open. I could get caught between two gunmen at any second, blah, blah.
Mm.
But hearing you, can something like all of a sudden come up that was kind of lying dormant for a while that's genetically like, can a gene be like turned on or that
Yeah.
was lying dormant?
Yes. Yeah. Our genes are turned on and off all the time. And it's interesting because I do believe that and I would bet big money on this, that you have the COMT gene, the COMT gene. And when you're out in the sun, it increases your vitamin D, right? Which increases your dopamine, increases your noradrenaline and your adrenaline. So now you can't break that down. So out in the sun on the beach at first, it's going to feel good because you got more dopamine, and then after a while, it's like all this adrenaline is building up and you can't get it out. You physiologically can't get it out. So it's going to put you into it's going to aggravate an already PTSD state by more adrenaline, and your body's going, what is going on here? So yeah, it absolutely makes sense to me. So when you get your genes tested, and I know you're going to get your genes tested,
Yes, I am.
you're going to see that COMT gene and you're going to go, she was right. And it's funny because you can spot people now. I can spot them and go, oh, there's an MAO, or there's a COMT, there's a VDR, there's a DDC. So it's sort of ingrained in my brain now. And after a while, my patients are doing that too. They come in and they go, I think my COMT is out of balance because I'm feeling a little anxious, more anxious than usual, and I can't seem to focus. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. And we'll go in and we'll tweak their program a little bit and get them back on track. But but yeah, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense to me that would happen to you.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Again, you just see me. I'm just like, oh my, this is so amazing. I could sit here for days on end talking to you, learning from you. Hey everyone, it's Teri Wellbrock, just taking a little break mid-episode. I know for the past couple of episodes, I have been talking about my new role, another new role, and all of my hats that I wear, obtaining my life and health insurance license here in the state of South Carolina, although I'm not limited to South Carolina in being able to help people. So no matter where you are in the United States, reach out to me at teriwellbrock.com. And there's a tab on my website that says request a quote. I'm also looking for people to join my team. So if you are interested in learning about some work from home opportunities, please go to that page, that request a quote page on teriwellbrock.com, and scroll down. Well, you need to fill in name and what state you're in and all that fun stuff. But you can, down at the bottom, it says, yes, I'm interested, or I know somebody who might be interested in work from home opportunities. So, all right, now back to today's wonderful episode. Thanks. Your program, it's My Happy Genes, is about taking them these results from the gene testing and saying, oh, here's what's going on with you, and helping people find really a program, which I've said for years, people are not cookie cutters. Like, we aren't all just the same. And so we have to look at each individual, which is why Western medicine, they just couldn't come up with any answers for me, because it was like, oh, try this pill. Oh, try this pill. And nothing was, it was making matters worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so true. And I'm very passionate about that piece, especially if it's something as easy as a nutrient that can make your brain chemistry work correctly. And, being in the natural healthcare field for all of my life, I really didn't want to go down that road of, taking antidepressants. But there were times when I was like, man, this depression is rough. This is pretty darn rough. And I know what it's like to live in that state. It's hard. It's really hard. And every day you have to make an effort to, maintain. It's a wonderful thing to live in Happyville and not have to think about that all the time, but so I'm very passionate about looking at things naturally and figuring out, why isn't your brain making serotonin? Why isn't your brain making dopamine? Instead of giving you a medication that keeps it from breaking down, or it's going to have some damage in your brain. It's going to, over time, and other things, if anybody's ever been on antidepressants, there are side effects and there are repercussions from that. And not to say that it hasn't saved people from suicide or some very severe conditions, but man, I really believe there is some, after having the experience that I had and my patients had, they'd come back in and go, wow, this is calm. I heard about that. It was like consistently people come in and say, I just have this feeling of contentment. And I call it biochemical nirvana, because they like, wow, this is content. I don't think I've ever experienced that. So I saw it consistently with just this right specific nutrients. So that's why I wanted to create a software program that could help so many more people get to this. Because I'm only one person. I'm not actually practicing anymore, but I have lots of practitioners all over the country. I have over 500 doctors who have taken my course and learned how to do this. But I thought the software program will reach more people, and it does it. So we have 5 reports. Once you get your DNA tested, immediately you get the mood and personality report that gives you like, oh, this is your risk of depression or anxiety or PTSD or addictions. We work a lot with addictions too. When you get your brain chemistry balanced, the addictions just seem to go away. It's fascinating. So we look at your risk, and that's number one, is learning why you are the way you are and getting that compassion up and going, wow, it's in my genes. And then learning about the genes. There's lots of information in that first report. And the second report is diet and lifestyle. So what is the exact right nutrient for you? Like for you, if you have that comp gene, you don't want to do green tea because it'll block the activity of that enzyme and keep you from breaking down adrenaline. So there are specific nutrient recommendations for the genes, like don't do this and do this to upregulate it. And then the other 3 reports, we have 5 total. The other 3 are given to practitioners because they're more in the health realm. What's my risk of cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's? We wanted people to be under the care of a healthcare provider when they read those, so that they look at them correctly and they don't freak out.
I was just gonna say, I will look at it and be like, oh my God, like my history.
Right. Yeah. So, and then we do the biochemistry report. We look at what biochemical pathways are most impacted. And then the algorithm gives you a questionnaire, a symptom questionnaire. You fill that out and it gives you supplement recommendations based on your genes, your biochemical pathways, and the symptoms you're experiencing. These are the correct nutrients for you to balance out your brain and your body. Our body, they're not disconnected, right?
Right.
Turns out what's going on in our gut affects our brain, and what's going on in our our cellular level, that affects our brain too. So it's all one piece. But we wanted people to be under the care of a licensed healthcare provider when they get their supplements, so that we don't do any contraindications. If they're on like a antidepressant and we start upregulating their serotonin, that's not a good scenario. So that's why we did that. Initially I wanted it to be available to everybody and just go in there and do it. But this is very powerful. It really changes the physiology, and we want to make sure that it's done correctly and that you're supervised doing it. So, but it's so powerful.
Oh, I just want it in every doctor's office in the, on the planet, because
No, me too.
it needs to be, right?
Yeah, do this first, do natural first. And then if that doesn't work, then of course, there are medications that save people's lives.
Yeah.
But, I see cholesterol come down. I see blood pressure come down. I see allergies go away. I see toxic issues go away, the anxiety, just all the things in the body that are uncomfortable and create problems. There's often a gene there that's underneath that. And if we get the right cofactor for that gene, then bam, it changes it, and our body starts to normalize. So it's just fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one gene that always popped up as I was reading and joining groups when I was really, really, really sick, like thought I was dying sick. And I mean, like 20 things out of whack. My electrolytes are out of whack, my vitamin D levels, my blood pressure, my body was just like, nope, stop. And I always read it as like the mother effer gene. It was like
Mother
the
effer.
MTHR.
Yeah, I knew you were yeah. Mother flipper, we call it.
Yeah, the mother flipper. That seemed to be a contributing factor with a lot of people. They would come back and say, oh, I have the MTHFR or whatever that
Right.
is. With toxins, it seems to be one of those that's an issue for some folks. So
it's only one little tiny piece of the story. And that's where we started, was like, okay, you have the mother fricker. I have a hard time.
I do it in my head. So
and it's how we convert folic acid into the active form, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. And so people were going, let's just give 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate if you can't make it yourself. And that's where they got into trouble. So there were a lot of people doing methylation, and people were like, oh my God, I feel terrible, because it actually turns on your detox really fast. And people were going, oh, I have a headache. I guess that's just Herxheimer reaction. It's like, no, you are overloading your detox pathways. This is bad news. And so that's where we started. And then we went, this is not right. I know methylation's important, but it turns out you have to do things in a certain sequence. You got to open up pathways downstream. So for you, if you did methylfolate, your body would make more dopamine, adrenaline, and noradrenaline, and you'd be set into even more panic, and probably have some severe detox reactions from it as well. So that was what we found out. And we realized that it's a symphony. We got to okay, percussion. All right, the winds section, get them all going at once.
yes,
magic happens.
It is so true. And again, I learned my body to say, oh, low and slow, number one, but two, like, yeah, I'm going to have to take just a sprinkle of that to try it out and see how I respond, because I was starting to recognize that there was so much more going on than, oh, hey, you have mycotoxins, let's detox you. Yes. It was much, much deeper than all that. So yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And
it is a symptom, not the cause. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, you are brilliant. Like, again, I'm just like mesmerized, but I love your compassionate soul. Like, I can just tell, I love your energy, and you just got this, and that's such an important part of it as well, is to just be like, recognizing the whole person. And that's crucial.
Yeah. And you and I are similar in that we're okay talking about it because it helps people, and more people should talk about it because we're ashamed. A lot of people are ashamed of their depression or their anxiety or their trauma or their PTSD, and they don't talk about it. They just sort of hold it in. And it really needs to be talked about, because it isn't a personal fault most of the time. There's a reason why you're suffering with those things. And if you can give yourself compassion, then you can give other people compassion. But you and I have been there, we've been in the trenches, and it's not fun, and we know that. And that's why you're doing what you're doing too, I believe, is to help people move beyond that and give them tools. And so thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, again, I call it my soul work, and it just
Yeah.
I love it when amazing folks like you come on and just share your wisdom and insight. So yeah, so how do folks connect with you or work with your program? How do they find you?
You can go to myhappygenes.com and start there and just read. There's a free ebook, and you can order the DNA test there to start the journey if this is what you want to do. And it's incredible. One of the things I'm very passionate about too is taking power over your health. And I think it's an important concept to learn about why you are the way you are, really understand why your body reacts the way it reacts, and start to learn to take control of that yourself rather than relying on a doctor to give you a pill and tell you
Yeah,
what to do. And I think a lot of us we're sick of that. And so
yeah,
I think it's time to think differently and to take control of our brain and our bodies, and really understand it. It's not as complicated as you would think. It's something as simple as your body doesn't break down stress hormones, or your brain doesn't make serotonin or dopamine. It can be that simple. Here's the nutrient that turns that on, or here's that nutrient that breaks down those stress hormones. So it's very logical, and that's the good news. And you can understand it, and then you can start to take control of your own health that way. So yeah, myhappygenes.com. That's
awesome. Awesome.
start.
And I always ask everybody, but I'm going to throw it at you. I know it's kind of after the fact before we close out, but is there anything that you wanted to mention that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet?
Um, oh gosh, I don't know.
We talked about a lot. We covered a lot.
We talked a lot about a lot. Uh, I think, again, understanding the diet piece is a great place to start. Listening to your body, paying attention when you eat something, whether it feels good or not, even if you think it's healthy, it may not be for your genetics. And so each of us is very unique. And something as simple as like tomatoes could be a bad thing for you, or even lettuce can be not good for you. So I think it's a matter of paying attention, giving yourself the compassion for being the way you are, and looking for, kind of those little lifestyle changes that really speak to you and make you happy. And just like you mentioned, going to the beach is like, it's a little bit scary, but it's interesting. If you take the right nutrients and you go back to the beach, I'll bet you'll have a very different experience. And so that's the fun part, is on this journey, you'll learn a lot about, yourself. So it's kind of cool. We
Yes.
call it the PhD in me.
Oh, I'm so excited. Like I can't wait to find out. And again, if it
Yeah.
comes across my radar, I'm like, oh, let me give it a whirl and see. Like that's how EFT and Ho'oponopono
Oh, I
Hawaiian
love
healing
those.
and all
Yeah.
that amazing stuff and EMDR. Yeah. So I'm very, very again, missing puzzle piece. Gosh, it's awesome.
It's a
So
good one. It's a really good
yes, yeah, for sure.
one.
Well, it's just been such a joy. Thank you for your amazing work. Thank you for being here and sharing your insights.
Yeah, thank you, Teri, for doing this as well. I appreciate your work and your help for people in the world to be happier and healthier.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag hope for healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, If you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.